podcast hosts Gabe and Leo discuss topics that directly and indirectly affect the LGBTQ plus community. Their generation gap has them seeing the world through very different points of view. They fight, they argue, they laugh, and they get off topic. But they make sense. Most of the time. Are you ready for this episode of Let's Talk Trans? Well, let's get started. Hey y'all, it's midweek. Yeah, I can't believe it's midweek. It feels like this week is dragging. I don't know about you guys. I don't know. It's just like, it's the week that never ends. And like I said, the fact that it's Wednesday just kind of goes to prove that. I'm like, ugh. So, May is Mental Health Month. And I know, it's kind of like, well, yeah, duh, Gabe, but, you know, it's the 18th of the month already, and the month is almost freaking over. Now, why are you talking about it? Well, because, you know, it's been a very stressful month. So, I figured that, you know, we would talk about mental health tonight, and I know that a lot of us, with gender dysphoria, you know, that is one form of, a mental health issue. But there's so much more that goes into mental health and mental health awareness when it comes to a person who's transgender, simply because of the fact that, you know, we're dealing with all this stress. I mean, tons and tons of stress. Not just the everyday stress that not just the everyday stress of going to work, getting up, going to school, or work, you know, family issues, school issues, or work issues, the drama, even the drive is stressful sometimes. The animals, the bills, the rising prices of gas, rising prices of food. And you can go on and on and on about all these stressors. And, you know, for, like I said, for those of us who are transgender, for people who are transgender, or anybody, I was really loud, holy crap. I am so sorry, you guys. I was in an event today, and it was a little, everybody's still kind of talking about it, so, anyway, but like I was saying, you know, people just deal with so much stress, and it's not just people who are transgender, I can't say it that way, people who are of the LGBTQ plus community, we just, because we put ourselves out there, because we come out of the closet, because we dare to be different than the status quo. I don't want to say we invite stress, but I think that we're aware that we're aware that we're inviting it. We're aware that, you know, it's not going to be. I always say this. My kids hate it when I say this. It's not always going to be candy canes and rainbows, or unicorns and rainbows, or however you want to say it. The thing of it is, it's not always going to be pretty and flowery and happy-go-lucky. We all kind of anticipate an added layer of stress on top of all the other crap that we already deal with. And that can be burdensome for a lot of people. And I hate to think of it, but I honestly understand that for some, it's too much. And that's what we want to talk about tonight, is coping mechanisms and resources for those of us that find ourselves on those dark paths. Whether it's PTSD, depression, you know, the darker side of gender dysphoria, those types of things where we ultimately feel like, what's the point? I'm not even, you know, there's no candy coating the topic. And it is a darker topic. It is a heavy topic. I want to, and you're going to notice, I can already hear myself doing it. I'm talking slower. I'm being very deliberate with the conversation, and I'm being very serious about the conversation, which is not me. I'm usually a very jovial individual, but again, it's mental health, and mental health is important. I personally have not lost someone to suicide. However, I can't say that I don't know people who have. Alright, so let me say this. I'm indirectly aware. Alright, both of my children have lost somebody, or know someone who has either passed away. Actually, that's not true anymore. I take that back. I have to rewind that. I do know someone who I am directly affected. That was not a gender dysphoria or a transgender issue. That was a guilt issue for him, and that battle had been raging on for a long time for him, and he ultimately felt that he deserved his fate, and I don't want to go into too terribly much detail, but this young man was in a car accident, and a friend died. He was not at the wheel, but he was in the car accident. He survived it, and a friend did not. And a couple weeks before graduation, he decided that the guilt got the better of him, and he took his own life. And at no point this young man had been one of my students when before I was a teacher, actually, long time ago, when I was I worked at a YMCA. I worked at an aftercare program, and he was one of those kids that I took to school or got on the bus and watched him after work till his parents got to Y. And and then as I became a teacher, I subbed for him a couple of times, and I watched him grow up, and I watched him become the young man that he was. And he had his demons, and unfortunately, he chose to fight them different ways than a lot of people do, and unfortunately, the demons won out. It's just that simple. And they do, unfortunately, win more times than any of us would like. So, what I want people to take away from tonight, what I truly want you to listen to or to hear, and this will probably be a shorter podcast because, well, let's just say it's not a grand conversation to have. Yes, I agree. Dog agrees. Hi. But what I want you to take away, one, is that you're not alone. If you're listening and you've been down those dark paths, and you could be on that dark path right now or just starting to, I want you to understand that you are not alone in your fight. You are not alone in your PTSD. You are not alone in your dark corner. You are not alone in your gender dysphoria. You are worth so much to so many. You may not realize it. And I know it's really, really hard sometimes to see the forest for the trees, like they say. You know, it's so hard to see how you make a difference or how you matter or how special you are, because you're looking through your own eyes. You're not looking at you. You're looking from inside you. But you don't actually see every little thing that you do that matters to somebody. It might be a smile at the local mini mart to a person who really needed it, and you didn't know that, but you smiled. It might be a compliment that you gave somebody, and, you know, they were having the worst day, and you just lit up their world for a second. It can be a thank you, or holding a door, or any one of a million itty bitty little gestures that we don't think about, that we do for people that affect them on momentous in momentous ways, in just enormous ways. I remember I was in college, and I think I'd gotten a poor grade on a test, and I was feeling like giving up. It's just, I was, it was postpartum for me, and I was really struggling with college and being a single parent, and it was like, you know what, maybe this just isn't it. And now mind you, okay, I went to college as an adult. I was 25. This young man, and I was walking down this hill towards the car in the parking lot, just very much in an F it kind of mood. And this young man who had a cast, just smiled at me and said, "I hope you have a great day, or enjoy your weekend, or have a wonderful day," or something. It was something to that effect. But the thing of it was that it was just so innocent and so polite, and he was so freaking handsome. That his smile was infectious. I couldn't help but smile. I couldn't help but be warmed internally. And that young man, whoever he was, changed that mentality in that split second. Pulled me out of that dark spot that I was in, and pulled me out of what could have very well been an end of a teaching career before it even got started. And he pulled me out of that dark space, all because he said hi. And like I said, it can absolutely be that simple. Some of you know, many of you may not. My stepfather died 2 years ago. He was a violent thing. And, we all went through we had to go through therapy, and the PTSD is still bad 2 years later. It'll be 2 years in June. And I remember, it was in the winter, probably the winter afterwards, so February, March. I had stopped at the local mini mart, and there was a guy standing in front of me who looked exactly like my dad. Now, whether he really truly looked exactly like my dad, or it was just it was a relatively reasonable facsimile thereof, I don't know what it was. And I stared at him, and it came my time to pay, and I of course I fumbled my way through paying for whatever it was I had, and I went out to the car, and I just sat there for a few minutes, wringing my hands on the steering wheel, and bawling my eyes out, just bawling my eyes out horrifically. And that gentleman got into the car next to me, a couple of spots down, and it was just the two of us in the parking lot, like 5:30, 6:30, something like that in the morning. And he never... He lit up a cigarette. He just lit up a cigarette. He sat there in his car. And I thought about it. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? I got out of my car. I walked over to him, and I knocked on his window. And he looked at me, and he could see, that I was red in the eyes. And I was clearly, upset. And he rolled down his window just enough. And I said, "I'm sorry. You look like my dad. He died last June. Could I please have a hug?" And he got out of his car, put his cigarette down, and wrapped his arms around me. And he let this perfect stranger cry in his arms in a parking lot for a couple minutes. And he just let me, you know what I mean? He let it out. And it was absolutely insane, but I felt better. And he told me that he had lost his dad